friends, Megan here. Today I'm going to be talking about my September wrap-up. I had a lot of fun in September. I didn't read a lot physically. I read mostly audiobooks and then some manga towards the end of the month. I did a big manga binge, but it was mostly audiobooks this month. I read 15 books this month. So this was a super relaxed month for me. I feel like every other month I've done a huge readathon of some sort, so this was really nice to just kind of pick a TBR and go from there. I really didn't stick to that TBR, unfortunately, but it was nice to not feel the pressure of trying to complete a readathon under like certain TBR stipulations and just read at my own pace. However, I feel like I really didn't read that much physically, so we're just gonna kind of jump on in and see what I read this month. The first book I completed was The Fifth Wave by Yancey, and this tells the story of Cassie, who believes that she is the last human on Earth after 5 waves have happened in an alien invasion, and it tells her journey and what this post-invasion life is like and what humanity means to her. I gave this book 5 stars. I read it as an audiobook and I really enjoyed it as both a story and an audiobook. It was a really captivating read. Then to follow up The Fifth Wave, I read The Infinite Sea, which is the sequel, and this was also a lot of fun. I gave it 4 stars. There was a lot more world building in The Fifth Wave. As you can see, they are substantially different in size, so this one had a lot more detail and world building, and it was a lot of fun to read. This one was a little more actiony, which is harder to follow in an audiobook, but I did still enjoy the stories. Next, I read The Isle of the Lost by Melissa de la Cruz, and this is a Descendants novel. If you haven't heard of The Descendants, it is a Disney Channel movie, and Dove Cameron, Sophia Carson, all of those awesome Disney Channel stars are in it. Dove Cameron is one of my favorites, so of course I watched it back when it came out, and then I just decided to pick this up this month. However, it is the story of the villain's kids and what it looks like to be a villain after the happily ever afters of all of the fairy tales. It was a really great story. This is a really interesting series. Instead of reading all the books and having the movies kind of adapt the books, they are actually in sequential order. So it's like the first book and then you watch the first movie and then the second book and then you watch the second movie. Like, you're gonna fill in the gaps between each, so they are really cool series. You can still again enjoy the movies just as is, but you're not gonna get all the details that the books provide in between each movie, and vice versa. You're not gonna get all the details that the movies provide between each book if you don't follow up. So of course I did watch the first movie and it was so much better than I remember it being. I just love the concept of like the kids of villains or fairy tales or gods and goddesses. I think that concept of like the children of our well-known characters is a really cool concept, just to see how they differ from their parents. So I gave this book 5 stars. I read it as an audiobook, which was really cool because Sophia Carson actually did the narration for it, so I really recommend this book to everyone. Next, I read the audiobook for The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, and I was so concerned about this at first. It's by Mackenzi and it tells the story of Monty, who is struggling with his affection for his best friend, Percy, and also with whether or not he should follow in his father's footsteps. And his father is kind of abusive and not the best role model, so he's just like dealing with what it means to be a gentleman and what it means to live in this time and what life would look like if he pursued the things his heart desired. And at first I was really not enjoying it. I didn't know where it was going. I was kind of concerned because this is a signed copy and I really thought I was going to enjoy it. But in the end, like about 2 hours into the audiobook, it like took a completely random turn that I never expected, and it made the first 2 hours completely worth it. I really enjoyed it from then on out, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. Next, I picked up Becoming Navi and Hello Navi. These are by Sandy Storm, a author who wrote a fantasy novella about her experience with human trafficking. And these are a very important topic, but I struggle to review these because they have religious aspects in them. I myself am religious and I have no problem talking about religion. However, the way that religion was portrayed in this made me kind of uncomfortable, and maybe that was her goal or what she wanted to achieve with that scene or those scenes, but unfortunately for me, it made me so uncomfortable that I am not comfortable recommending the book. But I do think that we do need to be aware of human trafficking. We do need to be aware of these kind of things. And overall, I would, if you were gonna read these, I definitely recommend Hello Navi over both of them. If you are religious, check them out. They might be for you. If not, I'm not gonna say I don't recommend them, but just be aware going into it that you might experience some uncomfortable bits. The next book I read was Crown of Feathers by Nicki Preto, and I love this book, you guys. It is 100% one of my top 5 books of 2019, probably number 3. I think Sorcery of Thorns and Six of Crows are still battling it out. I think Sorcery of Thorns is number 1, but then I think about Six of Crows and I think Six of Crows is number 1. So those two are kind of battling out the first and second place, but I would say that this is easily number 3 on my reads for the year. I loved it so much. It tells the story of Veronica, who all she wants to do is be a phoenix writer. Unfortunately, the phoenix population was greatly depleted in the wars, and now she is stuck trying to find phoenix eggs or phoenix writers, and she finally comes across this school where they're training phoenix writers to write phoenixes, and unfortunately the school only accepts boys. So Veronica is forced to assume the character of Nick and kind of portray a Mulan-esque storyline, and it's just really great. There's like mind magic, there's phoenixes, there's a strong female lead, there's male-male romance. It's just a really great read. Absolutely 5 stars, and I recommend this to everyone. I am actually on the First Writer Street team, which is Nicki's kind of campaign leaders who really promote this book. But honestly, I was so happy to join this team because I was promoting this book before I even knew about the team. So it's just exciting to actually work with the author and promote what I think is one of the best works of the year. Next, I read Darkness Becomes Her by Kelly Keaton, and this is honestly one of my favorite books I read this month. It is kind of along those lines of the sons and daughters of certain characters that we all know and love, and it's called the Gods and Monsters series. My friend Christina over at Looks and Books with Tina actually recommended this to me through our book collaboration where we each sent each other books. I, of course, sent her Crown of Feathers and she sent me Darkness Becomes Her. I had never heard of this before, but I gave it 5 stars. It was so surprisingly good, and I don't know why it's not talked about more. Everyone go read this book. It's fantastic. It mixes like Percy Jackson with vampires and paranormal monsters. It's just so good, and I really can't talk about it enough. So thank you, Christina. Then I read volumes 5 through 7 of Ouran High School Host Club. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that this has not been my favorite manga series. I'm not really a fan of short stories, and this series has felt like a just very long duration of short stories. However, these 3 volumes specifically have had some sort of continuation between each, so it feels like there's actually a plot line starting to form, and the characters are getting backstories and more personality. And there's also a short story volume that's been going throughout the series as well that I'm really in love with, so I really enjoyed these a lot more. I've been giving the other volumes about 3 stars, and I'd give these 4 stars. Then I read volumes 7, 8, and 9 of Dragonball. I gave volume 7 4 stars, but then I gave 8 and 9 5 stars. They were my favorite volumes so far in this series. They were hilarious, they were crazy, They make absolutely no sense at all, and that's why I love them, because it's just so stupid. It's kind of like SpongeBob, where it's so stupid that it's hilarious. That's how I feel about Dragon Ball right now. It's also really fun because Anthony and I have been watching the cartoon, so it's fun to actually see these scenes and characters come to life and just experience that with him, because that's his favorite show from when he was younger. And soon we're going to be watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, because that was mine, so I'm going to get him on that soon. But for now, we're on Dragon Ball, and I'm really enjoying it. The last book I read in September, and probably other than Crown of Feathers and Darkness Becomes Her, this was 100% my favorite manga, but it was like one of the top books of September, and that was the complete collection 1 of Orange by Ichigo Takano. I hope I pronounced that correctly, because this is hands down the best manga out there. I've only read like 4 mangas out there, but this is like amazing. I can't even describe it. I cried. I never thought I would cry over a manga. So this was just absolutely fantastic. And if you haven't heard of this, it tells the story of a girl who receives a letter from herself from the future about one of their friends committing suicide, and she is then dealt with the option to save him. So it's the story of like the letter telling her what to do and how all of it pans out from there. Oh my gosh, it's so good, you guys. I love it so much. So that is what I read in September. Please let me know what you read down below, or if we read any of the same things, or if you've read the things before. Please let me know your thoughts on the books I read this month, and I will check in with you guys in my next one. Thanks for watching. Bye, friends.